I wanted to talk a little bit more about Donald Trump and the insanity that we've experienced over the last few weeks. And more importantly, I wanted to go more in depth about something that I mentioned on Monday's show regarding Roy Cohn, specifically Donald Trump and Roy Cohn's relationship. If you don't know who Roy Cohn is, you should. Roy Cohn is one of the most divisive, impactful, evil, and aggressive political figures in American history. He has shaped, without question, a lot of the modern political arena, and not for great reasons, okay? He's a recurring character you can find in the background like fucking Waldo throughout multiple insane political eras. McCarthyism, there he is. Reaganomics, there he is. Donald Trump, there he is. And the thing is, a lot of Trump's chaos relies on his unpredictability, his toughness, his authoritarian nature. But if you actually look back at Roy Cohn and his impact on Donald Trump, suddenly this is not such a mystery and is somewhat predictable. Even more so, while Cohn arguably shaped the century, he is not remembered particularly well for it. And much of the vulnerabilities Trump has are due to his adherence to Cohn's philosophy. But a lot of times we just skip past those political vulnerabilities because a lot of people aren't very familiar these days about Roy Cohn's brand of political grifting. So let's talk about Roy Cohn and Donald Trump, how they're similar, and where we can find cracks in Donald Trump's armor from the Roy Cohn Bible. And I'll even weave in a section at the end about the April 20th martial law theory, whatever everybody's talking about. All right, cool. But before we get started, I should mention there's actually a movie based on the relationship between Roy Cohn and Donald Trump. It's by Ali Abbasi. It's called The Apprentice. Caused a little bit of controversy when it was coming out. It stars Sebastian Stan and Jeremy Strong. Sebastian Stan is Trump. Jeremy Strong is Roy Cohn. Now, obviously, this is a dramatization, but it's a pretty good one, and it gets a lot of the larger facts correct. But again, it is a movie, so it's going to end up dramatizing some of the things a little bit more. So I'm going to kind of stick to facts overall of what we know of these guys. And if you see any clips, it's, because it goes well with B-roll. All right, let's start with Roy Cohn. Roy Cohn was born in 1927 in the Bronx, New York City. His father, Albert Cohn, was a pretty well-known judge in the New York Supreme Court with ties to Tammany Hall, which we all know was a moral bastion of political virtue, right? Go look it up. You'll find a lot of moral things about Tammany Hall. But look, Cohn grew up during a period rife with anti-Semitism, and his mother, whom he was very close to, had a lot of high standards. So being ambitious felt like a very important thing to try to survive in this very dangerous world. Also, Roy Cohn was gay, like very, very gay. He never admitted it, not once, constantly denied it, and ended up dying of AIDS, which he told everybody was actually just liver cancer. But it was an absolute open political secret. But we'll get back to that part soon, all right? Cohn graduated law school at 20 and became a federal prosecutor at 24, which is fucking crazy fast. And he almost instantly gained a name for himself for helping convict Julius and Ethel Rosenberg for espionage. And after that trial, Cohn took a lot of pride for influencing the judge to impose the death penalty on Julius and Ethel, while critics accused him of manipulating the case for his own spotlight. Nonetheless, Roy Cohn gained the national spotlight as a ruthless anti-communist. And then in 1953, Senator Joseph McCarthy, that fucking guy, appointed him chief counsel to the Senate Permanent Subcommittee on Investigations during the Red Scare. Now, most of you know what the Red Scare was, or read The Crucible, or read how Arthur Miller was questioned about The Crucible, or watched the movie The Crucible because you didn't want to read the book and you had a test the next day. Don't fucking lie to me. I know what you did. But overall, Cohn was one of Joseph McCarthy's biggest allies and instrumental at pushing anti-communist witch hunts to target enemies within the government, military, and media entertainment industries. Eventually, though, after a lot of fucking witch hunting, it all blew up in Cohn's face when he tried to get his friend, G. David Schein, preferential treatment after Schein got drafted. Those hearings blew the fuck up in Joseph McCarthy and Roy Cohn's face, and it's where you get that famous line, "At long last, have you no decency, sir?" which pretty much ethered the career of Joseph McCarthy. All right, okay, well, he's gone, but Cohn isn't done yet, right? He reinvents himself as a legal fixer and represents people like John Gotti, Tony Salerno, Rupert Murdoch, Barbara Walters. Barbara, what the fuck? Apparently she was a close personal friend of Cohn's and was like, you know what? You represent all of these gangsters and crooks. You want to help out? Cohn became known for his style of intimidation and countersuits and delays and character assassinations. All right. In 1973, the Justice Department starts looking into a case about housing discrimination regarding this one company refusing to rent apartments to black tenants, but giving super preferential treatment to white tenants. Can you guess whose company that was? Donald Trump linked up with Cohn in 1973, and these motherfuckers became inseparable. Cohn was an enormous mentor to Donald Trump. He helped get Donald Trump connections, get him mob-connected construction labor, and taught him some very vaunted rules about winning, and this part is incredibly important. Roy Cohn had some very specific tenets that he lived and worked by, without question, that he passed on to good old Donald. Let's go over them. Number 1, never admit you're wrong, even if you lose. Cohn never conceded, right? Even when he took massive L's, it was always somebody else's fault. It was always some malfeasance, right? It was never on him. He never lost. With one lesson he eventually taught to Donald Trump being, never tell the truth unless you absolutely have to, as an addendum to this one. Number 2, attack, counterattack, never defend. This was the most iconic Roy Cohn principle. What made him such an effective bruiser was because he didn't give a fuck. He was going to come for your throat all of the time and define the entire narrative and how the fight was going to go. He was going to rush you the fuck down. He was going to set the pace of how information was divulged. So because he was always on offense in the media, he would end up dictating the terms of almost every conversation and story around him while never admitting he was at fault for that story. Does this seem familiar to you yet? Number 3, smear your opponent. But fucking self-explanatory. Number 4, loyalty is everything. You're either my friend or fuck you. I'm going to destroy everything you are and love. Number 5, delay, deny, and countersue. This highlighted Roy's chief philosophy to use the legal system as a fucking weapon. It's not about justice, it's about bashing your fucking head in with a lawsuit. And number 6, never settle unless it benefits you. This was Roy Cohn to a T. It helped him control the media, dominate every narrative angle, and intimidate every opponent he came up against. He was also a massive hypocrite. Again, Roy Cohn was gay. All right. He also helped hunt down and purge gay men from government positions during the Lavender Scare, a parallel campaign to the Red Scare. Well, eventually, all of this caught up with Cohn, and Trump began distancing himself. Again, Roy Cohn got AIDS and kept telling everybody, no, it's actually just liver cancer. He would never, ever admit to it. And it all ended in the worst way for him, with Trump refusing to help Roy with his final legal and medical struggles. Roy Cohn died in 1986, and Trump attended the funeral, but is said to have shown little emotional connection while he was there. And if I'm being honest, it's kind of hard to find sympathy for this fucking guy. He used his life as a sledgehammer to ruin others, and also probably democracy currently. And listen, Donald Trump adopted all of this, all right? Of all of the things that I just told you and explained to you, you probably already recognize something Trump has done within the last 3 fucking months that fall under that purview. This has been Donald Trump's ethos for decades, right? Trump and Cohn both viewed this entire game as a sport, which they have to dominate. And look, I'm not going to lie to you. Cohn's method is incredibly effective in certain media cycles, and it was incredibly effective in 2024. But the thing is, if you know that this is Donald Trump's strategy, which it fucking is, all right, you have to understand how he benefits from it the same way Cohn did, and how he is vulnerable from it the same way Cohn was and wasn't. So you don't fall for the same bullshit, and he doesn't get away with it. So let's go through this list one more time. Number 1, never admit you're wrong, even if you lose. Donald Trump has gotten more mileage than anyone off this one principle alone. He has lost multiple times over the last 4 weeks, over the last 3 months. He lost a fucking election in 2020 and didn't admit it. He's losing a trade war and claiming victory. He's about to be held in contempt. He lost a case unanimously at the Supreme Court. Trump constantly loses, but acts like he won. And you have to understand not only how this tactic deflects, but what it forces his opponents to do. You have this inclination, if you're fighting Donald Trump, to make him admit he's wrong. You want to prove him wrong because he's not saying it, right? But the thing is, he won't. He won't admit he's wrong, and you don't really need him to, all right? Roy Cohn never admitted he was wrong, but he still ended up suffering the consequences anyway. And before you go, Trump hasn't suffered any consequences. That is not true, right? Over the 12 fucking years this motherfucker has been running, he has suffered multiple consequences. They aren't the exact consequences we have wanted, but he has had setbacks. Donald Trump has been a major political figure in 5 election cycles. He has won 2 out of those 5 cycles. To some people, that's not enough. There's plenty of evidence I can go over, but I want to finish the point of this video very quickly so it doesn't balloon into a 40-minute thing. So let's move on. Number 2, attack, attack, and counterattack. Look at his news strategy. Trump wants you to play defense, or he wants the slugfest because to him, the game of chicken works. He leverages every entity to press you when you're playing this game of chicken because he thinks you're going to fold. And listen, when you're only on attack, that momentum is pretty strong, but it starts to break when you take damage. And Trump's political capital is damaged. Number 3, smear your opponent. All the nicknames he gives people, Crooked Hillary, Sleepy Joe Biden, all the shit talk he does about Obama. Oh, it's Biden and DEI's fault this helicopter crash, right? All of that bullshit eventually just becomes rote. And it glosses over the general public because they don't give a fuck about it. Not when the magic economy that he promised keeps getting fucking worse because of his stupid tariffs. Number 4, loyalty. Good Lord, we have talked about Donald Trump's fucking loyalty test, right? And how it both builds his circles and has also enlarged his opposition over 4 years after those circles get pissed off when they're not 100% loyal to his bullshit. By the end of Trump's first term, he had an army of former employees who were furious with him and just kept leaking information and fucking his administration. Number 5, delay, deny, countersue. Donald Trump will use the legal system and lawsuits as a weapon and different levers to intimidate everybody around him when he does not have control of a situation. He wants to exhaust people and make them think that he will never settle. He has the perfect fucking hand, right? Until number 6, never settle till it benefits you. He settles because it benefits him by not rat fucking him more than it already has. Trump University, Trump Foundation, both of those cases Donald Trump settled because his position was backed into a corner. You know that mugshot he tried to put off for so long until he finally couldn't fucking weasel out of it and had to get it taken. And this is what I'm trying to tell you. Like Cohn, Donald Trump thrives off of the intimidation and fear and overreaction of the people he's trying to pressure, right? Like Cohn, he wants you to feel like he can do anything he wants and he has no limits. Donald Trump was at his weakest a year or 2 before the 2016 election, right? When The Apprentice got fucking canceled because his relevancy seemed kitsch and weak and fucking a joke. And he won the presidency because of a fumble and a lack of a coherent strategy from another incredibly historically unpopular candidate. So look, when it comes to this motherfucker, stop looking at his sycophants to be your guide. That's not it, right? If you want to fight this guy, he cannot be the barometer to tell you he lost. You need to call his bluff, okay? His goal is for you to not feel any progress is being made, but don't look at him. Look at what he doesn't get. He didn't get the tariffs like he wanted. That's why he stopped and started them so many fucking times. He didn't get the Speaker of the House he wanted, by the way. Also, Matt Gaetz dropped out. He didn't get the honeymoon period he wanted. It ended sooner than any other president, right? He didn't get the court to back down like he wanted. He didn't even get the fucking SCOTUS to vote for all of his shit like he wanted. They just unanimously ruled against him. He didn't get the response from the partnership with Elon that he wanted, and he lost the bellwether special election he fucking needed. And he is going to be horrific and cruel and try to scare you like Joseph McCarthy and Roy Cohn did. But their names are synonymous with shame, hypocrisy, and failure. Make this fascist name synonymous with it too. Let me know what you think in the comments. Very quickly, before we move forward, don't skip. Don't skip. Look, I've been a huge fan of coffee for a long time, right? Like ever since I wanted to lose weight because it's low in calories and an appetite suppressant, but also I like the ritual around coffee. After a while, you start to taste more flavors in what you're drinking, and you can find some really amazing roasts out there. It's relaxing as well as energizing, as well as a good conversation lubricant, you know, all of those things. And that's why I've been having a really good time with the sponsor of today's show, Trade Coffee. Yes, they sent me a mug because I loved their product the first time so much and gave them a glowing review. It's their product. Trade Coffee has become one of my favorite sponsors. Trade Coffee is an amazing subscription service that pairs you with the perfect cup of coffee from one of America's top roasters. They've sampled thousands of roasts. They've curated 450 of them to send them right to your door. Listen, whether you're new to coffee or a seasoned coffee veteran, or you have a specific type of mug, the process is super simple. You just take this small little quiz. They ask you how you like to drink your coffee, what flavors you would probably enjoy, and they cater you a selection to make you fall in love with the art of coffee. And they send it right to your door, so you don't got to go to the grocery store. And on top of that, the prices for Trade Coffee are comparable to grocery stores. I like to use mine with a French press or a Keurig. I've been really liking the Alma coffee that they sent me. I've had a really, really great time with it, especially trying to sample more things to kind of expand my horizons in coffee. It's an amazing experience. And if you go to drinktrade.com/Zed, you can get 50% off a 1-month trial to Trade Coffee today. It's been absolutely worth it, and I think you're going to love it. So if you love coffee and you want to expand your horizons and also help this rap news show thing in some way, go to drinktrade.com/Zed and get 50% off your 1-month trial today. All right, back to the thing. Listen, I got one more story for you today. There is this theory on April 20th when Pete Hegseth is supposed to deliver information about what to do with the border and how to proceed, that Donald Trump is going to declare martial law on April 20th. And then he's going to suspend elections, right? And turn full fascist, dictatorship, destroy everything. Some versions of this theory have like a false flag attack, right? Or some like actors in place to sow discord. And I need people to like understand, right? Like with as bad as things are, and I recognize how bad they are, there are so many things about this theory that are not based in fucking reality, right? And one of them is that is not how martial law actually works. Like, I went through this on a previous Zed Talks episode, you know, when Yoon tried to fucking coup South Korea. I went through how the martial law system in the United States works, but fuck it, all right? I'll go through the basic logic problems of this whole thing as well, but let's go through the inaccuracies of this specifically first. Number one, there isn't actually a full-on provision for martial law in the Constitution, right? It's defined by like precedents and statutory limits and military custom in the United States. So just to clarify, there is no like, hey, by the way, martial law now that Donald Trump can actually do. And I'm not talking about like, oh, there's a piece of paper that says, no, you can't do this. I don't mean that. I mean like the literal fucking physical ability to make that happen. Like, he cannot wave his hands and have it occur. There's no enforcement ability the way, like, at least in the way people think. Let me explain. Here's what happens. The president declares like emergency powers, right? If there's like an insurgency, or the state can't protect its people, or if the states defied federal authority, like they were seceding and shit. But the president actually technically like doesn't get like a bunch of extra powers to do everything from that, right? He doesn't become like fucking super fascist saying Trump or whatever. Like all the things that he would gain from that to be considered extra powers, he needs like a go ahead or enforcement from other institutions or branches of government. In fact, during what would be martial law in the United States, the most powerful body of government isn't even the executive, it's Congress, which means, amongst other things, right? There's no way for the president to cancel elections, bypass Congress or the courts. And look, I'm not arguing, hey, Trump won't do it just cause. Listen to me. Donald Trump has no enforcement mechanism to end elections, okay? He would need broad institutional cooperation and the military rank and file, not the ones Trump gets to appoint. All of them would largely reject this. They're trained to reject this. But then again, while we're asking questions, here's another one. Why do all of the people touting this April 20th conspiracy theory never mention in martial law Congress has the most power, or physically how elections are run? Most of the time, it's just comparisons to other nations without understanding or even taking into account for federalism. Like, they just dismiss federalism entirely, which is like the whole fucking thing in the United States. That's how this whole system works, which is why I am saying it doesn't make any fucking sense, and it's a conspiracy theory. If Donald Trump declares an emergency on the 20th, he cannot suspend elections and destroy everything. He'll probably deploy troops at the border and build infrastructure there, but he can't take over the National Guard. The DC thing in 2020 was a specific technicality. He can't declare war. He needs Congress for that, and he needs sign off from another institution before his orders can happen. And again, after listening to the first section of this video, Roy Cohn and other people like this motherfucker thrive off the fear that builds conspiracy theories. You focus on this terrifying, unnerving, really scary thing that probably is not going to happen, and they do other shit that is more heinous and exhaust you. And I know people are worried about the homegrown comment he made. Look, I can't act like that's not concerning, all right? I can't act like Muslim citizens weren't detained in 2003 following post 9/11 hysteria. I'm not giving in or ignoring any of that. I'm just saying there is meaningful pushback to this. And the issue I have is that at a certain point, the idea that Trump will just do whatever he wants ignores so much fucking context or dismisses legitimate arguments that people have, that there is no convincing certain people who don't believe that he's just going to do whatever the fuck he wants. All of it's gone. Y'all are fucked. And the only solution is this accelerationist one, because it seems the easiest and the most convenient to absolve your anxiety. And I don't even want to give you shit for that, all right? Because I get how that feels, okay? I've told you, I felt this before, all right? Okay? It is legitimately concerning. But again, do not mix my words up. This is concerning, but believing all of the bluster and spiraling from what it is what this administration wants you to do. Do not let them. Let me know what you think in the comments. But no, elections will not be suspended on April 20th. A lot of the theories that are going, I know I'm harping on that specifically, but a lot of the theories that are going around that specific thing are untrue. There will probably be some overreach, but a lot of the scenarios that people are gaming out are not going to happen. Please, on April 20th, if he does some performative shit, don't fall for people conflating things, all right? I get very upset at the way certain influencers want to really demoralize and fucking hurt people's spirits so much so that they think oh, okay, you got to follow my methodology only. But anyway, that's our show. Thank you guys so much for watching. I hope I gave you some information that you can use. Remember to like, comment, subscribe. And anyway, my name is Tabani. Thank you guys so much for watching, and I'll see y'all soon. Let's go.